to communicate carefully. I'll sum this up with one more story. I'll never forget sending a high priority message to a colleague saying, do you want to speak Wednesday or Thursday? Important meeting. The response, yes. In today's world, reading messages carefully is the new listening. Writing clearly is the new empathy. We don't just walk the talk, we don't just talk the talk, we write the talk first. The new first impression is no longer the first 7 milliseconds someone meets us, it's the first email we write. It's knowing that the quality of our subject line is kind of like the new eye contact. If you want to get someone's attention, have a good subject line, have a good meeting title. The quick email recap after a meeting, in person, virtual, hybrid, is like the new virtual handshake. It either tells us, are we all aligned or not? We all have been in those in-person meetings where everyone's nodding their head and then nothing gets done. So that quick email recap makes all the difference. So what does it look like today? It looks like simple things like understanding we have to communicate our mind and our mindset. We have to think before we type, not just before we speak. As leaders in our community and within local government, we have to choose maniacal clarity over brevity. And a big part of that and the way that we work today is remembering that with so much more of our work becoming more digital and hybrid, even if we're 5 days a week in the office, we're still sending the same amount of emails, having the same amount of Zoom calls, needing to connect with people across distances or even different floors of an office. We have to make what was implicit in the past explicit now. In all of our messages, great connections look like making sure we answer these questions in every email, every message we send. What is the ask? What is the priority level? Why do you and others need this? And how are you feeling about it? Are you grateful? Are you happy? Did you share that? There are 4 different versions of okay on this slide, and I'll just share that it can mean different things to different people. The first okay in all caps with an exclamation point. For some that feels like excitement. For others, it feels like shouting, and for others, it feels like urgency. The second okay, with a period at the end, there was a study that showed that if you put a period at the end of a text message, digital natives think that means passive aggressiveness or a harsh stop. Digital adapters think that's just good grammar. The third one with multiple question marks, for some this feels accusatory, for others it's friendly, or just, a simple question. This also depends on your power level. Remember, your colleagues read your messages based on your power level as well, with the lack of that body language. And even the fourth one with an emoji at the end. For some, this is friendly, for others, it's immature. So a big part of communicating carefully is obviously knowing your audience, but it's also checking your bias to make sure that you're not just thinking something and thinking that they're going to be on the same page. You're really communicating your mind and creating maniacal clarity on your team. What I want to do next is, this is a quick example of something that I've done with teams, and it's really related to the fact that we have so many more communication tools available now that can create a lot more confusion than clarity. One of the recommendations I always have is to make sure you and your colleagues, when you add more tools to communicate, you make sure that new tool either replaces an existing tool or solves a new problem. And within your teams, make sure that you've discussed 3 key factors in how you work. The first is complexity, the second is urgency, and the third is frequency. So first, complexity. If something is highly complex, what do? We may have that thoughtful meeting in person or a hybrid meeting, including those that can't physically be there, but we always send an agenda before. We don't invite 50 people if really only 8 people need to be there. We think like a TV show host, getting everyone's idea, not just the loudspeakers or the senior people. And then we always send that quick recap after, 10 minutes later, to make sure everyone's on the same page, or even have a video recording if it is hybrid for those that can't be there to follow up later. If it's not complex, we send a quick video out, we send an email, we keep it short. The second is urgency. Do we need it in 5 hours or 5 days? Making sure you have norms around this is incredibly important. within your team, within local government. So certain things are 24 hours is just fine, others are really 5 hours. Last but not least is frequency. How often are we communicating in these tools? I know one leader, he was exhausted by the amount of emails he was getting, and he instituted a new procedure. He called it hybrid office hours, where 3 times a week for 30 minutes, he'd get on a Teams video call, and he'd also be in the office, so anyone could join virtually or in person, and they could ask him any questions, solve any problem. It was like the scheduled water cooler moment. It solved so many of those inefficient emails that were sent out that ended up being 5 reply all emails and turning into a 30-minute video call that were really 5-minute questions.